Good evening, Freedom Friends. This is another episode of our program, and I do apologize. I'm a bit under the weather. I overdid it a bit on the Sailor Jerry last night. Uh, and my son also has the flu, and I believe I may be catching. I may have gotten something from my son. To begin tonight's episode, I'd like to speak about this country's debt, which, as frequent listeners to the show will know, and of course any informed citizen will realize, it is completely out of control. Um, it's into the trillions, and that fact alone somehow is not impetus enough to begin a cultural uprising. But at this show, we're not about complaining, we're about solutions, offering solutions to these problems. And we'll get to that later on in the program. And you are going to want to stay tuned. It's a pretty radical idea. I'm willing to go on record and say that we are the first to promote the solution that we have come up with for the nation's debt. And no, it does not involve anything to do with a debt ceiling. I'd like to address some concerns that were brought up with a video from last week regarding Larry David. And one of our viewers brought some concerns to the table related to information that we were promoting in that episode regarding Mr. David. Namely that we referred to him as an executive producer on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. Now, yes, to the untrained eye, Larry David had no official involvement in that program. That isn't a coincidence, folks. The information that we came into was the result of a clandestine operation that has been going on for several years, and due to the sensitivity of the matter and the ongoing nature of this operation, we can simply say only that there is a source in the know who has confirmed to us that Larry David was indeed the primary organizer, funder, and driving force behind that program. Now, that is not the only fact that leads us to oppose this man and his ideologies and viewpoints. One need look no further than Larry David's many syndicated television programs, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm, as to name a few, as well as we've gone over, Queer Eye. Mr. David has promoted some rather radical social views, and we believe that he has done so primarily not for entertainment or even wealth, but to further his own radical agenda. Now, Larry David is no friend of this show, and he has attempted multiple times to file suit against myself and my partner Mike, unsuccessfully, I might add, for now. As you may be well aware, Larry David is very powerful in Hollywood, in the industry, and has vast resources with which he may be coming for us again. Now, beyond his under the table dealings with the Logo Network, as discussed, as well as his work on Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, again, both highly leftist, radical programs, Larry David has funded political campaigns, uh, known and unknown, which the American people may be interested to take a closer look at. Now, it's well known that he supported the Obama uh, administration in its first term, and indeed he was instrumental in bringing Barack Obama into office uh, the first and second time. Excuse me. But it's some of his less known political affiliations which would bring quite a bit of speculation, and rightfully so. Mr. David has been involved with the list is nearly endless. Uh, there are uh, there are several unconfirmed reports that he was at least had at least some tangential involvement in the the doings of David Koresh in the last months of his life. Uh, he was a close associate of Reverend Wright for a number of years, though of course he is a staunch atheist. I'm drawing a blank here, folks. Like I said, the list goes on. And these are just a few examples. This is not in any way meant to be a comprehensive list of our grievances against Mr. David. And he is one of many Hollywood types who we have dedicated, partially, our message to opposing. Now on to some solutions, as discussed earlier in this episode. Mike and I consider ourselves an unofficial think tank of sorts. And after several brainstorming sessions regarding the national debt, we uncovered a pretty interesting solution that I think a lot of the American people would be very interested in coming to the light. And as any great solution, it solves several problems simultaneously. It's well known that we have just a lot of problems politically, economically, and otherwise with nations like China, Russia, and so on. And these countries, among other issues that we have with them, have, you know, they're heavily involved in the business of debt. The American people are heavily, heavily into debt, drowning in debt even to some of these countries, especially nations like China. Our solution is thus: any country that we owe more than, say, $1 billion to, we will nuke. Now, as I said, this solves several problems at once. It is, in fact, technically a form of non-proliferation, because we would be expending a large part of the nuclear resources that this country has access to. It would, in fact, deplete significantly our reserves. This is, and we're talking about comprehensive carpet bombing, not targeted strikes. We're talking whole hog. Now, it's also well known that Russia and China are two of the leaders in nuclear weapon stockpiles. So, of course, in addition to solving the debt problem and sending a message to the rest of the world, the chain reactions ignited by our bombs hitting their bombs, among everything else in their uh, respective land masses. Uh, we solved the nuclear problem, the debt problem in large part. There still would be work to do, of course, as well as diplomatic relations with several difficult problem nations such as Iran, who I also believe we should not withhold the nuclear option from that nation as well. Of course, we don't owe them much, if anything. And in fact, they owe us quite a lot in terms of our help with their revolutions a number of years ago. But I believe with some consideration and deliberation, the American people are willing to enter into a conversation where solutions like this, previously considered rash or harsh or unrational, these ideas will be open to reevaluation. That's all we're trying to do with this program. We're just trying to start a conversation, get the American people talking, get them thinking for themselves, spark those neurons, and hopefully begin a dialogue which will lead to real change. Uh, Thank you for watching, and this has been another episode of Freedom Friends. Have a good week.